This is the Nobody Entertainment Podcast, episode number 4, the podcast where we discuss movies, music, television, video games, sports, exercise, our lives, or whatever else might tickle our fancy for the week. I'm Nobody Jaymes, and with me, as always, is Nobody John. How has your week been, John?
My week has so far been actually pretty good. Pretty good on a couple different reasons. Would you like me to elaborate?
Of course I would. I've had mostly nothing happen, so this is your show.
That's what I like to hear. So first and foremost, I'm staring at this box here, Pine 64. I just got it today. I ordered it maybe 2.5 months ago, and they've had a little problem. It is a Linux Community Edition for UB ports, which is basically Ubuntu Touch. It's been taken over by the community, and so I've got a new phone that I need to set up. So I don't know if you can see that, and then they've got a little pine cone icon right there. It's actually pretty cool. I don't know. Anyhow, I mean you can't there.
I was
So
going to say I don't look through that camera, but I wasn't going to acknowledge it because I didn't want to slow you down. You were on a
no,
roll,
that's
so
fine.
you finally upgraded your phone, and that's uh,
Yeah,
what.
by the time it got here, like last week, they were like, "Oh, we've got a Pro edition that has like an extra gig of RAM and like this little dock where you can use your phone on your computer screen or whatever and a keyboard and mouse." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I just bought this thing and oh shoot, that thing's just talking to me now." Um, Other than that, I've sampled this. Never thought I'd be drinking Bush, but Bush apples, pretty dang good.
But when you're on a fruit kick and you walk to the store, you take what you can get, right?
Well, yeah, they said limited edition. That girl at the local booze store, sales craft, because I was like, oh, hey, I'll call them up, see if they've got it. Because they said, I was reading on the website, they said limited edition, while supplies last up until October and only at limited locations. So I called. I said, hey, do you guys have that Bush Light apple? And she goes, oh, yeah, we've got some. It's selling. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I'll come by Sunday and pick it up. And she goes, well, you want me to put a case for you behind the counter? It's like, well, how fast is it moving? Well, we've only got a limited supply. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll just put some shoes on and I'll come up there and get it. You want me to put it behind the counter for you? I was like, well, how fast is it going? She's like, well, we don't have that much. I was like, I'll be right up. I'll be right up. I get there.
Little did you know.
They have a full stand of this stuff on
you
Sunday.
got
I was
you
like,
got
this,
bamboozled.
I got bamboozled. But I went back on Tuesday. They didn't have any of the 12 packs. They all got sold. So they actually are moving it. So I was forced to buy a 24 pack of Busch Light. I'm not proud of it, but it tastes good. So Busch
That's right. How
Light
much does a
apple.
24 pack of Bush Light run?
The apple, I think it was like 22 after tax or something like that. It wasn't too bad.
That's not too bad.
Less than a
Not too bad.
dollar a can, man.
Well, we,
Um,
we talked about this last week. I'm going to show it off here, even though I've already shown you. But I went and I got my hands on some of the mango. I'm sorry, the Golden Road mango cart. But as you said, they didn't have any single packs at the store that I went to, so they could you can just get a 6 pack, 12 pack, whatever of the mango. But I ended up picking up. I think it was it's a 12 pack of the mango cart. I'm sorry, it was a mixed pack. So it was 4 mango carts. It was 4 pineapple carts, if we can see that, and then there were 4 of the watermelon cart. Which I will say, out of the 3,
wasn't the watermelon your number one?
watermelon was the best. I was actually surprised by it because I loved the mango, but that watermelon was a sweet ride. So if that's something that you're interested in, I suggest you give it a shot as well. The pineapple, take it or leave it. Mango, definitely number 2, but it has a very strong mango flavor with too much of a tail. Um, I don't love the aftertaste, but the watermelon is just solid through and through. So I'm trying to sit on the watermelon, drink the other ones, get them out of the way, so I can actually have a sweet night with a pack of the watermelon.
Gotcha. Well, I'll have to pick that up for this upcoming Sunday. I'm definitely a cat guy, and so we've been feeding this cat. She was bloated, pregnant, like maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago, whatever. Uh, Thin little legs, but we feed her, and we've fed a couple other strays. Her and what we call Grandpa were the only ones left. And one day she comes back thin as a rail. I mean, bones in her back. Must have lost the kittens because we never see her, never see the kittens. So we're just feeding her, trying to get her healthy. She's sticking around. And then we were trying to plan, because of COVID, our Humane Society, they are appointment only, which doesn't really work out. I don't know if they've ever caught a cat before, but you work off the cat schedule, okay? Not when like, oh yeah, we'll set you up on Tuesday at 2 a.m. Like, I don't know where that cat's gonna be at Tuesday at 2 a.m. Let me see if she's available. Anyhow, she brings by kittens the next Saturday. So there's 6 kittens and this cat, and I'm like, I don't want to mow, so my grass is getting tall. Anyhow, she moves them to the north side of my house, and they can crawl underneath my house. There's like a little gap for a vent system. So I crawl under there. It smells like cat poop, and there's like kittens under there. So I try to scooch them out. One goes out, but other two hide in a corner where I can't get them. I'm like, fudge. So I was like, okay, well, I can't scare them under there, so I'll just crawl in after work. So I get home from work, I crawl under there. There are 3 cats. I think it's the same cats, little kittens, that were underneath the house yesterday. So I think they're stuck under there. They're not very feisty. They're not running too much away. So I grab them, get them in there, trick the mama cat into a cat carrier. She like does this like barrel roll inside the cat carrier, taking the wet food and like washing it around her, so she's a dirty mess. And it's just like, I just feel so bad because I broke her trust, and then I grabbed her little kittens, the rest of them, put them in a box, just like shoving them like a troll, just picking up hobbits and throwing them in a box. And we get a hold of the animal catcher, and this guy, I don't think he likes animals. Like, he shows up, no gloves.
I don't think they usually do. I think they get to the point. It's kind of like if you work at a daycare and you go in wanting
They
children. By the
automatically
end of
hate
it,
kids.
yeah, you're just like, I never want to have kids in my life. And when you do have kids, you take out all the years of working in the daycare out on those children. Like, just shut up and go sit in a corner. I don't want to see or hear you. You'll be lucky to get lunch today,
Yeah, this
because they
dude.
can't be mean to the kids they're getting paid to watch.
That's true. This dude pulls up. He goes, "Hey, those your cats?" And I was trying to be funny because I smelled like cat shit, and, and I've been bit by a little kitten. I go, "Well, I caught him, didn't I?" And he didn't laugh. And then he like
No,
walks up, 2 cages, startles some mama, like looking over the cat carrier. He's like, "I think she'll bite and get out." I was like, "Well, take the cat carrier then." "Well, you won't get it back." And I was like, "Well, it's disheveled anyway, and it's got like full of cat food and stray cat." And then
cat food and stray cat.
so I open up the box, and there's like these 6 little kittens, and so like I put on a glove and they get the kittens out. And this guy just looks pissed off. I did all the hard work. I crawled under my house. I got bit. I caught all the cats. I chased all these little baby kittens. And here, I'm gonna put them up on the screen too for everybody. Look at those little kittens. That orange one's the one that bit me. He hissed like puffed up. And then that black one, that little shadow gray guy up there in the upper left. And then that little white one, they were very lethargic. They didn't run away much. I cut back to James. Um, I felt so bad for them because they probably were under my house like 2.5 days. And I told him about it, and he goes, "Well, they're not gonna get any water or food tonight." I was like, "Do you want to take some food? Because I bought food to feed these cats." "No, no, I'm fine." I was like, "This is not for you. It's
He's preemptively telling you that he's not going to feed or water these cats.
Yeah, he's gonna kill him." I was like, "Well, I'll give him food. What do you want? They were under my house." Anyway, so that was an exciting thing. Last thing to happen, and I'm sorry to go on a deal.
You're fine.
So I've been looking at a new car for my wife, and we've been looking to get in a new car, and I've been going back and forth about these Fiat 500Es. Well, I ended up purchasing one. So got a decent deal. It's about $1,400 under market value for the deal, and it'll be on its way here after 5 p.m. Central Standard Time from California. So that's
Nice.
Madison's new car.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited for you.
Maybe she'll let me drive it, hopefully.
And you're next. You're gonna drive it. You're gonna fall in love and decide to get rid of your 18-year-old
Listen,
Focus.
Focus. No, we need one short. So the plan
One
is,
short car, one
yeah,
long
no,
car.
literally one around town car, which is just a little electric. It's not a supercharger, no long range or
I get
anything
it.
like that. Just something to go to
Need
Carthage.
need one that's reliable and one that gets you from point A to point B.
Well, long distance, short range. So,
Yeah,
dude, there's so
yeah.
many free charging. Like our our electric company, Empire, which is now Liberty, they have like chargers, like not everywhere, but all over the place. It's for like free charging. I could take it up to the university here, plug it in, and then go on a bike ride, or go have a beer at Gasano's and stuff like that. That's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna save money in gas and oil and just start spending it on food and eating out. As I could go downtown and then go have a couple beers and some drinks and stuff while it charges. So,
Right. Well, you've been talking about getting one of those for a while, so I'm excited that you got your hands on one. Well, as far as my week goes, I haven't had anything too terribly exciting. I think the only thing of interest is actually
that mixed
yesterday
pack
was, yeah,
beer.
exactly. That's it. Is the only thing I can get excited or smile about is the mixed pack of beer, and then the Moscow Mule that I ended up picking up the mint for. That's the key to the Moscow Mules. I've got this on standby, so whenever my beers run out, I can start tapping into this guy. But
You
the
got
key
mint
is,
grown in your yard?
hell no, I did buy some at the Pick and Save that's right next door to my work. No, the only thing of interest was yesterday was my wife's birthday, and we took her out to dinner. She's a little bit COVID weary because of the whole scare that we talked about on the previous podcasts. Um, but I did invite her family, but I called ahead and I had them section off a whole section of the restaurant, and we socially distanced. So we had my family of four at one table, and then two tables away was her sister and their family of five, and then two tables away was her mother and her father, and then two tables away was her brother and his sister-in-law. So that was a fun little experiment. It was a little emotional at first
Now,
in the
some of
sense
those
that we
people
weren't
were COVID positive, right?
at that time. It's well past it now. They were all freed up on Sunday. They were outside of their quarantine window, and they should be 100% good to go. So
That was post. So, but the birthday thing was while they were infected.
no, not at all.
Oh, okay, okay. I was like,
No, no,
I
no.
don't think they have the proper HVAC to separate the air
Yeah,
for circulation.
we wouldn't do that at all. Like that was like I said, we typically wouldn't have wanted to go eat anywhere that was indoors, but we did want to get out and do something uh, that was nice for my wife, and it was her favorite restaurant. The thing is, whenever you've been together for as long as my wife and I have, I'm
Gotta
33 years
introduce a
old.
third wheel.
No, like 12 different wheels. No, I'm 33. My wife and I have been together for like I want to say 17 years, 18 years. We've been married for going on 10. Actually, holy crap. Okay, I'm good. I think I missed her anniversary. I was just messed up by her birthday, which was yesterday. No, that'd be bad. But yeah, as of September, we'll have been married for 10 years. So you run out of things to buy for these people, and it's hard to surprise them with anything that you know might want to be able to pick them up and not really know. I'm an electronics guy. I've always liked to buy her the newest, hottest electronics. So if I don't have any electronical options or electronic options, not electronical, um, I just have no idea what to buy her. So this year I bought her a pack of 3 laundry baskets, a weighted blanket, and my kids and myself made her brownies. And
Well,
then, of course,
she'll
like I
like
said,
that weighted blanket because she reads a lot.
yep, she does like it so far. It's fun watching her haul it up and down the stairs. I think that's a good option for our anniversary, as I can pick up a second one, so that way she can have her upstairs and her downstairs weighted blanket. It weighs 15 pounds, and watching her lug it around,
She's gonna get in
it's
shape.
yeah, she's like, yeah, benching a blanket. It's awesome. So, but like I said, as far as my week goes, that's pretty much the gist of it. So if it's fine by you, we'll transition over into what's been entertaining us. And I'll lead us off because I am under the impression that you and I have watched the same movie. And other than that, other than Cats and Car and Phone,
Oh, I haven't seen the show Cats, the movie Cats, or the travesty
that,
Cats.
no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your cats, your
Oh,
phone, and your car. You haven't had too much else that's been entertaining you. So I'm going to dive into one of mine real quick. This is going to be real fast. But I watched the film Pet Cemetery, which was released on April 4th, 2019,
oh, the new
starring
one.
Jason.
Okay.
Yep. Starring Jason Clarke, John Lithgow, and then Amy Seimetz or Seimetz. I don't know too much about her. Directed by Kevin Kolsch and then Dennis Windmeyer. Um, I got a wild hair because I listened to a podcast that they discuss horror movies and things of the sort, and they were talking all things Pet Cemetery. I personally have never seen the original Pet Cemetery, which is, of course, an adaptation of the Stephen King novel. Um, but I did have interest in this one. Just for some reason, I'm a big kill count kind of person. So if a horror movie doesn't have a substantial kill count or an interesting villain, I have a hard time getting into it. But something struck me to watch this one, which might have just specifically been this podcast that I was listening to, which, to give a quick synopsis, family moves to an out-of-town area in Maine, and they buy this farmhouse, which just happens to have a cemetery on its property, which I hear is a change from the book. They live next to a um, gentleman by the name of, I believe, Judd, who introduces them to that um, graveyard whenever the kid's cat, speaking of cats, dies. They want to do their best to make the kid happy, so they bring the cat back, which ends up having, I don't know, relatively evil or sinister tendencies and being a little bit more angry and violent with them. But long story long, and spoilers, um, the family's oldest daughter ends up getting hit by a truck during her birthday party and dying. And the dad and family, being, of course, just absolutely devastated, decides to bury the child in the pet cemetery, which resurrects the child and gives the child violent and evil tendencies. And it goes from there. From what I understand, there are a lot of differences between the two films, and even more drastic differences between the most recent film and the Stephen King novel. Overall, I'm not upset having watched the movie, but I wouldn't suggest it. I think it's just kind of a drag, even only being something in the ballpark of an hour and 40 minutes. Um, just no character really stands out on scene. None of the horror really plays out, although I will admit, having two daughters myself, seeing the family going through the struggle of losing a child, and then at what length will they go to reconnect their family, I can definitely relate to. So I will say it hit on a little bit of an emotional level for me.
Did you
But
make a decision right then and there that, if one of your children, I won't name which one, gets hit by a truck, you just cut your losses?
yeah, I'm not even going to go there with you, John, because the last thing I want to talk about is that it's even even an option. Um, but I will say that as a parent, I don't know that I would be able to walk away from having an opportunity to do whatever it took to reconnect a family or to be with a family member. So I think it would be a tough thing to deal with, and that's why, like I said, in regards to this movie, I'd say if I were to star it, if I were to give it one of our patented 3 out of 4 scores, what was it? Garbage, good, and great. I would say it definitely, for me, falls into that missing fourth category that we never came up with. And I even looked up synonyms for a G option there, meaning fair. But for this,
We just take great, move everything down, and then just add a GD at the end for
but that's the problem though, because it's garbage, good, great, and gosh dang, right?
yeah.
I'm not going to say this is good by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
I think if I were to tell you to watch this, or anybody else, I don't think you're going to watch it and go, hey, that was a good movie. I think you're going to be like, it was fine. It was something that you can watch in passing on a Sunday afternoon. It's nothing too fancy. But I'm going to jump into my second one real quick, and then we'll go into the one that we share. I watched a film called Palm Springs. The actors in this movie, and again, it's Palm Springs. It is a comedy released on Hulu, roughly, July 10th of 2020. It's starring Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, I believe it is. I've only seen her in a couple of things, like one episode of 30 Rock, and a couple of other things that are escaping me at the moment. Oh, and it has J.K. Simmons, I believe his name is. So it's a pretty stacked cast on that front. It's only an hour and 30 minutes long. Do you have access to Hulu?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you. Actually, let me go into a brief description.
One of the
real quick.
reasons I married Madison, Hulu.
For her Hulu account, spoiler alert, you can steal those or just borrow them. I think 11 people use my Netflix.
She doesn't know that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. You're like, I think we should get married because I want to share your Hulu account. She's like, I don't think we need to do that. You're like, oh yeah, we do. It's actually in the rules.
Yeah, it's things.
Stuck in a time loop, 2 wedding guests develop a budding romance while living the same day over and over again.
Yeah.
So this might remind you of movies such as Happy Death Day or Groundhog Day, something along those lines. Now, I will say that this movie is absolutely fantastic, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but it takes a spin and makes it a lot more interesting and fun. One of my biggest pet peeves in films, even though I will say I love the aforementioned movies, Groundhog Day and Happy Death Day, I think those are both great. Happy Death Day to You was fine. It took in a different direction, but I thought it was a little too over the top. But specifically with this one, almost never shows you the same two things twice. It's about Andy Samberg that gets stuck in a time loop, and then this girl, his name is Niles, the girl's name is Sarah. She ends up in the same time loop, which you see this in the trailer, so it's nothing that's a spoiler in any way, shape, or form. And it's just showing how their relationship progresses forward. And I'm not saying that it's in a romantic way. I'm not saying it's in a negative way, but it is extremely, extremely entertaining. I had an absolute blast watching it. I am almost upset that I took it to the gym with me and I watched the first 45, 50 minutes while on a treadmill, and then I finished it up at home. I wish I would have popped it in and watched it, number one, in one sitting, and number two, on a big screen where I could actually enjoy it as an overall film. So I strongly recommend it. And if I were to rate it on our garbage, blank, good, great scale, I would absolutely give this one a great. And I strongly, strongly recommend to anyone that can hop on Hulu and check this out. This one would be worth the price of subscription for Hulu just to see this movie. Well, let's go into the film that we both watched over the course of the last few weeks. So I'm going to give a brief synopsis and kind of a breakdown, and then this is going to run us right into our topic of the week, which is going to be just the overall Netflix model. So I'm just looking for your thoughts and opinions on your thoughts on the streaming service as a whole, not necessarily just Netflix, but streaming services versus the mainstream cinema, big picture releases and things like that. So we'll go into all of our thoughts on that. But to start with this movie, The Old Guard, let me give a quick synopsis, very small. It is an adaptation of a graphic novel by the same name. The film was released on Netflix in July of 2020, so just this month. A group of mercenaries, all centuries-old immortals with the ability to heal themselves, discover someone is onto their secret, and they must fight to protect their freedom. The film stars Charlize Theron, Kiki Lane, Matthias Schoenaerts. I'm sorry, I don't know the name. And then the last one, which is also difficult to say, but he is a mainstream actor, Chiwetel Ejiofor, I believe his name is. You might recognize him from one of his most prominent roles, which was Doctor Strange. He plays the guy that helps train Doctor Strange. So it was directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, which I'm not too familiar with her. I'll look up what she's done here in a moment. And it had a budget of $70 million. So if you would, I guess, jump on, and I'm going to look up Gina Prince Bythewood real quick. Can you tell me a little bit about what you thought?
Well, I'll start off with the bar was set sort of high because they've been talking about her being a minority and directing films and the work that she's done beforehand on NPR and talking up this piece and what the studio did to greenlit her. Apparently the decision was made there in the room with her when she went to, say, hey, I wanted to do this film. So the bar was set kind of high for me, and I think I might be of an opposite opinion to you, to what you think about the film. I think it was okay, whatever that would be in our G scale.
I guess you have to figure out how to rank that on your own. So it's garbage. It's garbage, blank, good, or great. But we can come to that in a little bit. You could think of it.
It's not gaga. Anyhow.
Or gosh darn, right. So it'll be five. It'll be five. Good. I'm sorry, garbage, blank, good, great, and gosh dang.
Gaga. We'll call it the last one gaga.
Yeah, gaga.
Gaga. So I don't know where you want me to start on this film. The parts that excited me, the parts that got me going, or the parts that just pissed me off and turned me off. Like, definitely limp all the way through. So.
Okay. Well, let me go into mine. I think I'm a little bit more diverse on my opinion. I personally don't disagree with you. I don't think it was the best movie in the entire world. But before I jump into that, let me go into this director's kind of repertoire. What I see that she has done, at least her mainstream stuff, because I'm not going to go into her television series and stuff like that, because she's done a little bit of directing and writing in the television world, which might be a disservice to ignore that. I don't know, but I'm not familiar too much with the Bernie Mac show, Girlfriends, etc. So, with that being said, excuse me, she directed and wrote Love and Basketball in 2000. The Secret Life of Bees was in 2008. She wrote and directed that. Beyond the Lights, wrote and directed in 2014. And then The Old Guard, she directed. The one thing I do note that was pretty funny to me is she produced a movie called Biker Boys, which was a 2003 kind of run at Fast and Furious, but on motorcycles. So
Gotcha.
I thought that's kind of funny. But this movie, The Old Guard, going into it, I knew almost nothing about it. I watched it just based off of kind of the star power alone. Charlize Theron, I think she's just a phenomenal actor, and I love the majority of the things that she's in. At least the things that I have seen her in personally, I like her in the majority of the roles. For instance, going back to Mighty Joe Young, um, Monster, Reindeer Games, which is another great movie, but she's great in it,
Yep.
and the Italian Job, et cetera, et cetera. She's done so much more. She's a very diverse actor, and she doesn't limit herself or pigeonhole herself into comedic action, whatever the case is. She's kind of a jack of all trades, and she does a phenomenal job in that. So when I saw that she was starring in this movie, that's what stuck me to the idea of watching this. So I came in, I watched it within the first week it was released. I will say that there are aspects of this movie that I loved. There are aspects of this movie that were very, very, very bland. What I will say is there is nothing in this movie that I hated, with the exception of one thing specifically,
Okay.
which was the actor Kiki Lane's performance. She plays the new recruit that they bring in as an Eternal or whatever you would call them, right? And let me just say this. You are right, but we will go into full spoilers. So if there's any chance that anyone and or nobody watching this, I just want to be very clear that we will spoil pieces of this story starting as of right now.
I'm gonna do the whole thing, so you better disconnect from the
Absolutely.
stream.
So she's Kiki Lane. I think she's probably capable in certain aspects in certain roles, but not in this one. I just personally never found her to be believable. I thought she was very bland and boring. I thought she did not sell her action scenes. She did not sell her dramatic scenes. And at no point was I rooting for her as a character.
Do you think you're gonna blame her or the director for this?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think a lot of it could be based off the budget, even though it had a $70 million budget. I don't think they necessarily had the ability to dip into the reshoots because, I mean, film costs money, and to record a movie really does tap into your budget, and it hurts. Well, even still, I mean, how many extra hours does it take to edit whenever we have to go in and I don't know. You don't do a lot of editing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do know. So I'm not going to say it's her. I'm going to take all the blame off of her for the most part, besides accepting the role to begin with for the character. I think it's definitely the character itself. They take a Marine, a United States Marine, and then make her a pushover. Like, she has post-traumatic stress from killing that guy at the beginning, and like that stays with her a little bit. And I know it does, and I know it will, but it seems they make her soft, they make her naive. And this is somebody who has gone through basic, who has gone through Marine training, and I don't think that in reality they're gonna baby or soft train a black woman in the United States Marine Corps. I think she's going to get a lot of flack. I think she's going to have to prove herself, and it's definitely going to be a lot more battle hardened mentally because of the stuff that she's had to grow up with and deal with in the Marine Corps. And they just make her, I mean, like, a wuss. Like, they make her
Right.
soft. They make her ignorant on some stuff, and like, hey, I want to go home and stuff like that. This is somebody who signed up for, let's say, 4 years in the Marine Corps, ships off to the Middle East, right? Is fully aware of not like seeing her family, and then they keep on bringing up this mushy gushy stuff like she just wants to talk to her family, her mom and stuff like that. And they try to tie that in the beginning with the photo of her father, but this is somebody who signed up to not see her family,
Sure.
who can deal with the distance, and yet they kind of try to push this theme on that, she's weak, naive, and I just don't.
Well,
I can't
let
even
me
tell if
back
she
this
like meant
up.
to shoot herself in the foot in that one scene, like that was an accident, or she was just proving to the dude.
Always intentional, for sure.
I hope
But
so.
let me back this up real quick. And
Back
again,
it up, baby.
it's a couple weeks ago since we've gone into the spoiler territory. I'm going to go into just a little bit more detail.
You already told him.
Yeah, but this is we had I think we started out with 4 of the Eternals. I'm going to say again, they're not Eternals, but they're with this 4, and they find out through a source of coincidences that they are basically unable to die. They can be shot in the head, they can be blown to bits, whatever. They recover, they reform, so on and so on. But it fast forwards. It doesn't even actually start. It starts in present day. It doesn't start in the past, but it shows them getting caught. The group of the four being caught on film. That they, of course, have these regenerating powers, and they don't know it, but they do seek out a fifth member, which is the Kiki Lane character, and they introduce her into the storyline. And then it is kind of a revenge film because they're torn apart. You find out that there's a traitor in their midst, and then the story just goes from there. And that's all I'm going to really touch on as far as the story goes, but I think that gives a little bit more of a breakdown of what the story's actually about. But I do like that you touched on here, and that to me, I think that would make a very interesting and compelling story. If you have the Kiki Lane character introduced with a little bit of like PTSD, whatever the case is, even if she's battle hardened, whatever, she doesn't know that she has regenerating powers until she's literally shot in the head by Charlize Theron's character, the main character of the story. And then she regenerates, comes back to life, and is like, "What the heck just happened? I had no idea I could even do this." Right?
Yeah, and I don't like the fact that the other members of the Marine Corps, her sisters, her other Corps members, her other Bulldogs, like started to ostracize her because, of
She has
what.
regenerative powers. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were like kind of, I mean, like they could be kind of
Oh
freaked
wait,
out, but
she
like,
got killed. She got killed in battle, right?
well, yeah, that. So that's one thing. Like the Marine Corps, that group, they should have seen that knife coming. Like she wouldn't have been like in the position to get cut the way she did. I don't
Yeah,
think
but
that would have.
you are kind of tripping over, pennies to pick up dollars here.
Fine,
I mean,
fine,
in
fine.
this
But
in
then why
this
would you freak out?
scenario,
If I
those
found out
accidents
you
happen
had
all the time.
regenerative capabilities, the things I would
Right,
ask you to try to get those. The
right.
things that I would ask you.
Well, what I would like to see is maybe just completely remove her character from this film and introduce her in a sequel, in a sense that she's maybe on her own or she's recruited by this group, but then she decides to not take part and move on. Now, again, this is part of a graphic novel. Maybe this is how the story actually went. But if you see her as a completely separate entity, where she finds out that, oh, I've killed this person or I got killed by this person, then she's dealing with her PTSD while this other organization is trying to track her down and bring them onto their team, whatever the case is. I think that's a compelling story in itself. But kind of merging the two makes for a busy movie. And let me be very clear too. I'm kind of shitting on this film more than what I actually feel I should be. I really like the visuals. I think the action works 100% of the time.
The motion
Let me
blur
take
on the thing is a nice touch to try to get away from some of the graphical difficulties of like showing wounds heal, and I do appreciate
sure.
that. I noticed it and I appreciate it.
The one exception to the action scenes, and I thought the action scene itself was fun, but it really showed the budget of the film was whenever the again I'm forgetting their character names. I'm sorry, Charlize and Kiki's characters have the fight on the airplane. So they shoot the pilot, plane's going down.
Do they
They're
shoot
having their
him? That's Madison and I were talking about.
they don't. He's not a regenerator if that's what you're
That's
asking.
what we were kind of like.
No, 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 no. She maybe, but what it's insinuating is that he just plays dead because she says whatever into whatever language, like "Hey, play dead," and shoots. But the thing is, it never shows not one time in that fight scene an exterior shot. It never shows the debris. It never show. It doesn't show anything of this plane going down other than just a little bit of rocking on the inside. So it just flat out shows the
Or when they,
budgetary restraints
or
to me.
how they got off the plane to go to that church.
Yeah, it's
Just
all
walking out
like
of
I
the
said.
woods.
It's a little it's a little bit restrictive based on its budget, which again, I think that's fine. I think the average moviegoer, not that I'm above average, but I think the average moviegoer is going to watch that and just be okay with it. But it took me out of it a little bit. What they should have done is done it as a one take and just shown a really neat fight scene, and it wouldn't have distracted because it was a very choppy action scene. To me, I was like, we haven't seen the outside of this plane, so I mean, is he really diving? Would these guys just be able to stand upright if this plane's going down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I gotcha. So the other thing I have to complain, again, this has to do with character, is Copley. He's the one that hires the group of mercenaries to intercept them,
You're
right?
cheating. You're looking up names, aren't you?
I did look up his name. Chiwetel, I
Yeah,
can't even.
Ejiofor. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, Copley.
Ejiofor.
So like,
You're so funny. I'm like, how do you know the names of these actors or the character names? I don't know when you watched the movie, but
IMDb, baby, I watched it.
I'm
I
like,
watched it yesterday,
I'm
so it's
like
fresh
two
on my
weeks
mind.
away. I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about, but go on.
No, this is the guy that like he set up the whole fake mission for
Sure.
the four to go do about like the kidnapped girls and stuff like that. He's the one that put the shoes outside of that prison thing and set up all those mercenaries, all those people to get killed, and to capture these people. And then like somehow he has like a check to reality. Like he's been watching this group and all the good that they've done because of his wife has died or whatever. So he's developed a lot of time and aspect of like looking what all the good to do, and then he does evil things to get them to an evil person, and then at some point he has like he does like a 180 flip. It doesn't fit his character
See,
whatsoever. It
I don't
doesn't
know that
fit him.
I don't know that I agree with you there. I don't know that the corporation that they're selling to, because again, the corporation that is trying to pick up these Eternals is based on helping people. Their goal is to not necessarily build super soldiers or whatever the case is. That might be an offshoot, but their goal is to create uh, 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 medicine and healing powers for these people that might have illnesses and
Yeah, but
things of
he
the
set
sort.
up for 20 people to die just to get it on footage.
Sure. Well, I mean, he doesn't. He set that up to see if it could actually happen, right? He set it up. I mean, maybe he kills these people that he knows that have killed. The okay, let's. That's another thing. Let's go on that for just a second.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
the old guard, these four people, they're not necessarily heroes throughout the course of this story, right? They may have done terrible things. I mean, they've been
Well, it
alive for
depends on what
hundreds.
side of history you fall on.
Exactly. I mean, and it showed her like fighting for like a an Asian army, an Oriental army. I don't know exactly what it was.
The Huns?
Which, tell me about that.
Well, they're not good people.
That's what I'm
Attila?
suggesting here, right? We don't know what side of history they fought on, so they might have played for the good guys. It's very much a Wolverine-like storyline, right? He's in all of the information that we've been given, he's fighting for the good side. But as far as we know, he's done some bad things throughout history. So yes, he's set up for these 20 people to be killed to capture these people on film to see that they can regenerate. But as far as we know, as far as he knows, maybe it's BS and they've just never been killed before. And they get him captured, they take him out, and then they come back and he's like, "Oh my God, this is real. I didn't expect this."
No,
So they could, like you said, I will agree with you there. They could have played with the emotions of it a little more, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I sacrificed these people." But that's not how the film was built. They didn't set it up with any emotional payoff, pull, push, or any of that. It's all set up very, very, very surface level,
so
which is
fine.
one
The
of my
development,
frustrations with the
the
movie.
character development for him is horrible then.
I
Because I took him as
I,
like a bad guy. He's a,
I agree with you in that sense, but I will again say, like we talked about in Pet Cemetery, the familial bond and pull. I mean, what would you do for your wife? Literally anything,
his wife
right?
died. She done.
Sure, but you would still do anything for her to redeem that. If you could theoretically bring her back,
He couldn't
not
though.
now,
You're
not
talking about
now.
like the pet
In
cemetery.
Sure, I'm not even just saying that. I'm saying if he could help people by saving them from losing their loved ones in these kinds of scenarios, right? I
Is,
don't
is
remember
this
how
where
his
the ends
family
justify the
died.
means kind of thing?
Exactly, it's utilitarianism, the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. If a couple people have to be suffered and killed for the better of the
Or
people,
meat?
then so be it, right? But I'm not saying I agree with the mindset, but I'm just saying that it is something they could have played with. Yeah, so what I'm going to say about this in my closing thoughts, again, I think the movie, and that's probably my biggest complaint about it, is it's surface level. It never delves any deeper um, in any of the characters, even the Charlize Theron
I
character, which they
expected
could
more
have
from the
really.
director about that.
I do like the ending in the sense that she is essentially mortalized, and yet she's still going to operate with the old guard. Like her next death will be her last, which I think sets up an interesting perspective for a sequel. But I do think in a very rare circumstance, this would be a perfect example of a film that would have been better as a 6 to 8 part miniseries or something like that versus a an hour and 45, 2 hour and 5 minute, whatever it was, movie. um, but again, if I were to rate it, just as just me, and then you can go into your closing thoughts on the movie and then your rating, I would give it at least a good. I don't think it's garbage. I don't think it's blank. It's definitely not great, and it's definitely not gaga. Um, I would say it's at least good, and I would say for the price of admission for Netflix, I think it is a good watch.
I think watch it because everybody else is talking about it, so you can talk about it. Um, I think it's above garbage for sure. I don't think it's good.
Blank. You think it's blank?
I think it's blank. Yeah, most definitely. I think the character development fell short. I think, or at least didn't live up to my expectations of what I would perceive a person in that particular situation to act, to feel, and so that really takes it out for me. Like I'm just, there's a certain amount of, you know, disbelief that you have to have, just like, just look through the cracks or whatever. But it fell out for me.
That being said, I'm going to delve into our kind of conversation of show, and that is just generally the Netflix model. So I'm going to do a quick run through, and we don't have a ton of time left for this episode, but we're going to run through this as quickly as we can. Again, just the Netflix
Shoot.
model. And I'm talking about Netflix specifically at this point, but we can open up a little bit more later on. Netflix has a total number of monthly subscribers, which equals 61,043,000. The monthly cost ranges from $9 to $16 per month, which gives it an average monthly revenue, because I just averaged those numbers out, of $9,537,968,750 a month. Okay, that's an
9 billion a
annual.
month.
Yes, that's an annual revenue of 114,455,625,000. Now, if you are looking up right now, you could probably find an actual number. I just did the basic math, averaging the base subscription model and the high-end subscription model. So I don't know that these numbers are actually accurate, but the last few things I'm going to touch on are the releases over the course of the 2010s. There were 203 films released over that 10-year period. Granted, they didn't start until a little later in that decade, but they range from, and I'm going to run through a lot of names here just for the 2010s, but I'm going to pare it down. Marriage Story, Six Underground, The Irishman, Dolomite Is My Name, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, In the Tall Grass, Between Two Ferns, the movie, Wine Country, The Highwayman, Velvet Buzzsaw, Bird Box, Cam, Gerald's Game, Ridiculous Six, Pee-wee's Big Holiday, and The Platform. Those are a small list of the 203 films that actually came out in the 2010s. Movies released in 2020, that is absolutely this year, and up till now, there have been 53 movies released this year alone. And they range from, and this list is much shorter because the content seems to be a little more hit and miss at this rapid rate. The Wrong Missy, The Lovebirds, Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. The reason that one's on there specifically is it's the Will Ferrell vehicle. The Old Guard, Da Five Bloods, and Horse Girl. So with that being said, I'm just opening up this conversation to what do you think of the at-home streaming services? What do you think of that model versus going to the movie theaters? Do we need movie theaters anymore? Do you prefer watching films at home? There's a lot of questions to be asked, not a lot of time to cover it, but what do you think about it?
Okay, first and foremost, we do need movie theaters. I like the experience. I think it's something special, and I never want to miss out on something special. That being said, I want to see something special at the movie theaters. And I think, for the most part, Netflix and these other streaming platforms have done a great job of incorporating some of the things and have saved some things that would have never otherwise been able to put out.
Exist in the first place. I completely agree with you.
Exactly, because some of these big studios are just going to overlook it.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to make me 200, 300 million. So I'm not going to do it.
Well,
So
since we're
I
on that,
appreciate it for what it is.
for that conversation specifically, I do wish that they would pare down the number of releases that they put out and they would do a little bit more of a spotlight on it. I know that Netflix specifically has a tendency to cater to you and your viewing habits. So if you were to log into your Netflix versus your mom's Netflix versus my Netflix, we might have completely different suggested videos because it has a built-in queuing system that bases it your preference on what you've been watching.
Yeah.
So, or bases your suggestions on what you've been watching specifically. But occasionally there's movies that come out. For instance, I never watch subtitled movies or even typically foreign language films, but The Platform, which is a movie that you and I watched together via streaming, um, and we both loved the movie. I think we could easily put that one into the great, if not Gaga category, with the exception of the ending, but that's a different conversation. Um, Maybe you disagree. I don't know, but
No,
we, like I said,
yeah.
um, but I would have completely missed it. It didn't even put it up on my radar. I had to actually find that on my own, which, again, if it had just shined a little bit of a spotlight on that film for me, I think I would have delved more into it and liked it a lot. I'm sorry, found it a lot sooner and been able to spread the word about it a little bit more. Because if I hadn't, maybe I'm wrong, but if I hadn't, in, piqued your interest in that film, you might not have even heard about it.
No, it would have taken a lot longer.
So I think that they could do a better job of shining a light on some of these smaller releases and not release 45 movies in a 2 week period. Because, like I said, if we focus on specifically the numbers, 53 movies released in exactly 7.5 months. That's insane. Whereas if you look at a movie theater, they typically have 1 to 2 major releases a week. So, I just don't think that that's a fair way to release it. Because if we do look back over the last 10 years, then all the movies that I named are critically acclaimed, or at least watchable in some capacity, be it like a Adam Sandler vehicle like The Ridiculous Six. That's a stupid movie and not one that I necessarily would recommend to anybody, but it's something that if it had come out into a theater, it would have had a major push behind a producer and a publisher. So I think somebody would have probably been able to catch the interest of other people, whereas it might just roll out on the Netflix and people might never get to watch that movie, which, again, that's a bad example because it's a bad movie and it should never have been made in the first place. But let me go into a movie like Cam, for instance. Have you heard of Cam? It's basically about a cam girl that has a doppelganger, and it's kind of a pseudo thriller horror Twilight Zone-esque episode. It's only like an hour and 20, hour and 25 minutes, but it's a very entertaining film, and I strongly suggest that you watch it. Another one is The Irishman, which is directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
It's like 3 hours and 40 minutes long, and even though me personally I didn't love it, it falls into a realm of a Goodfellas and a casino-style movie, giving Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, etc., kind of their last send-off. And that did get a mild theatrical release, just so it could be nominated for Oscars and things of the sort. It was essentially a Netflix release, right? And they did shine a big spotlight on that because it was a major director. But as a whole, they have a tendency to kind of overlook some of those avenues. I do like, again, big theaters. I think that giant theatrical releases are great, but I think that the major theaters are kind of catering to the big budget Marvel movies or the Fast and the Furious movies a little too much. I have a tendency to try to go out and see smaller, not necessarily indie titles, but just smaller movies that people don't try to flock to just to keep those films alive. Like, I don't know, for instance, The Witch. So with that being said, I would just like to see a little bit fewer releases on a monthly basis with a little bit more spotlight, maybe a little bit of a bigger budget put into some of these films. And then when it comes to actual theaters, I would like to see, assuming they do come back, I don't know that I necessarily need them to exist, because with my time and my habits, I think I would prefer to watch movies at home, but I would like to see a little bit more of a spotlight shown on some of the smaller films other than just the big major pictures.
Do you have any like local independent theaters in your neighborhood?
For the most part, no.
That's probably what it is. Like an
I
Alamo
live
Draft
close.
House, or like we have
Do
the
you have
Bookhouse
those?
Cinema. Hmm?
You have the
Springfield does.
Bookhouse Cinema?
We have we have the Bookhouse Cinema, which is an independent film place. Great food, great beer. Go
So
there
if
with
you're
friends.
if you're saying if I have them in my area and you're going to Springfield, then yes, I have them in the Milwaukee area or even the Chicago area, which is further away. But Milwaukee's only an hour and 15, hour and 20-minute drive, whereas Springfield's about a 45-minute drive for you.
Yep.
So it's not too much of a difference. And
Gotcha.
I could find those at those places, but that's still a lot of an investment to see a film if I just wait 2 months, because most of these smaller films come out on video pretty quickly after they're released.
You just gotta go see them with friends, have some beers, make it a day, something special, not just
Which
like every weekend.
which would be fun. I do agree with you on that. So we'll follow up with our last segment here. We'll jump right into Our personal favorite games of all time. Have you come up with one that is your favorite game?
Yeah, most definitely.
You've got it right there.
I've got it right here, just with this cat. So it's pestering me because I've been on the computer too long. So if I'm gonna take the lead on this, easily RTS, it is Warcraft 3. Played it in middle school or high school, not middle school, high school, a little bit of college. Um, Definitely fun. I was number 14 on the ladders at one point, and it was something else. How to create strategies. It's a great RTS. I think it's very well balanced. I generally played as the orc horde. Never built any flying units. Barely did any ranged units. I would just build wolf raiders. You could unlock um, they're a more expensive unit. They did higher damage, slower to build, slower to move. But I would build Wolf Raiders on or Ward Riders that had a netting capability, and it didn't matter if you built like some big baller flying creature. I could bring it down to ground level and then chop it up. And I had the pillage ability. So at the end of the game, when all the gold mines were running dry and everybody else is running out of money to build units, I could go raid some of your stuff, take your assets, and then produce more troops. And the elves could just turn the forest into troops, which then I would chop up and bring to gold. But a lot of fond memories. Great balanced RTS. Um, it's good stuff.
This is number 3.
Yeah, Warcraft 3.
Well, very nice, and that's on the PC specifically. I'm starting to see a bit of a trend for you here,
No,
John.
that was also on
What did
X.
you play it on?
I played it on PC.
All right, then shut up.
Nobody's playing an RTS on a controller, okay? You need the mouse. I mean, maybe back in like Warcraft 1 when you could only like select 4 units at any given point in time. But honestly, grab the mouse and then use control and set your groups. So,
There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, you're a PC player. I'm proud to see it. My edition for this week at the best game of all time, or one of my favorite games of all time, sorry, is Bloodborne for the PlayStation 4. It is very much a coined term Soulsborne style game now. If you've heard of Dark Souls or Demon Souls, Dark Souls became an actual series. They've had 3 releases over the course of the last 10 years, I'll say. Demon Souls was the one that kicked it off. Um, Basically, it's just a third person action adventure game with bits of horror sprinkled in. Bloodborne is its own PlayStation 4 exclusive offshoot from, I think it's From Software is the name of the studio that produced and developed the video game. Uh, it's an absolute treasure of a video game. It's one of the most brutally difficult games that I've ever personally played through and or beat. I think if you were to sit down and actually rank the top 5 video games, I think the Dark Souls series would be in that same vein, and Bloodborne would be connected to that universe as well. It's very simple. You start out by building your character, and then you start in kind of a broken down, um, old, I don't know, decrepit village with monsters. The first enemy you encounter is a werewolf that just repeatedly kicks your ass over and over and over because you have no skills, you have no armor, and basically what you have to do is kind of muster up and find the ability to beat these enemies one on one until you make your way to the first boss of the game. And once you take him down, you are entered into this, I think it's called the Hunter's Dream, and then you can actually build upon your character and level your stats. But as you beat these enemies throughout the game, you pick up their blood echoes, which those are what you use to rank up your character. So you don't actually start getting any stronger until you beat the first boss in the game, which, I mean, comparatively, you're this big and the first boss of the game is this big. And you run into a situation where you're just aggressively overnumbered, and not necessarily by actual numbers, but by size. It's a very like, um, what is it? David and Goliath kind of situation. And if you manage to take them down, you are able to level up and make your way further and further and further into the game.
So are you a Van Helsing sort of character, or are you like a Castlevania vampire kind of thing?
Both yes and no. You're not necessarily, there's no specific storyline that it's built from. You are just basically what the way I understand the story, and it's been a little while since I played this game, but you're basically a reanimated, um, I don't know,
Oh,
dead
they have
character.
something for those. That Japan, of course, it was by a Japanese studio. That game I bought and I sent to you is also a
Oh,
reanimated.
Chex Quest, right?
No, not Chex Quest. No, I just got it on Steam. You're gonna make me launch Steam, aren't you?
No, of course not. Yeah, you're a reanimated, I don't know, soldier, I guess you might say, but you're brought back to kind of fight the dead or the evil, and you fight your way through by collecting their blood echoes, leveling up. And I will say that it is the absolute most rewarding game I've personally ever played, in the sense that you have to stick with it. This is a game that I picked up and put down no less than 3 to 5 times, and finally had to say, you know what, I'm just gonna figure it out, because I didn't get past the first boss until my, again, like I said, third to fifth playthrough. I was ready to give up on it and move on, buying this game at $60 retail, and then deciding, you know what, I'm going to stick through it and see what I can do. But what you end up doing is you beat that first boss, you level up your character a little bit, then you work your way around and you're able to open up these gates, which give you shortcuts to get through the levels a little bit faster. And they aren't traditional levels, they're interconnected little hub areas. And then you make it to the next section and the next section and the next section. I think there's something in the ballpark of like 18 bosses that you have to work your way through. Um, and you can be killed in one hit by a lot of these enemies if you're not ranked up well enough. It's it's amazing, and I'm a little sad that this game specifically is locked behind a PlayStation 4. I don't know if it's your style of game specifically. It is gruelingly difficult, and it takes a lot of patience and effort and time to get used to it. But it is the most rewarding game, in the sense that once you start beating these bosses and fighting your way through these hordes of enemies, you feel like you've absolutely accomplished something each and every day, to the point where I hunted down all of the bosses, and there are something in the ballpark of, and I'm probably wrong about this, but roughly four bosses in the games that are secret bosses, but you want to take them out just so you can see the true ending of the game, because the actual final two forms or so of the final boss are only opened up if you find all of the hidden pieces and beat all the ending bosses and so on. So, what was the game you were talking about?
Origami. I'm pretty sure I got it for you. It's an action pack, action adventure stealth game. It's developed by Works for Linux, Microsoft Windows, OS X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And it is like a third person. Um, I don't know. You can go through the shadows. You can't be in the light. You lose your powers in the light. It's like an assassin's kind of game, stealth. But pretty sure I got it for you. And it's good.
Yeah.
Definitely use a controller on it. And but it's Japanese kind of thing, and so you're like this undead soldier that was brought back to do whatever this princess's bidding. Apparently, there's a film too about the whole concept, but it's yeah, too. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It seems like it would be in a similar style, maybe a little bit more in tune um, with, I don't know. This seems like it would be more. I know it's not, but it would seem more like a PS3 kind of Tenchu, which Tenchu is not PS3 necessarily, um, or even like a Ninja Gaiden kind of style game, which I would say that this is probably in that same vein. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
But
it got an 81 on Metacritic. So
what's Bloodborne say that? Did you look at that?
for Metacritic, no, I didn't look that up. Let's look that up. Look what somebody else thinks. Up.
I bet it's pretty high.
Bloodborne. Metacritic 92. So yeah.
So it's definitely up there, and user score of 8.9. So I think it's got a great storyline, but you have to dig through to actually get it. It's not presented at the front of the game; it's presented in the background, and you find your way through it. Um, like I said, it's a great game. Well, definitely one of my greatest games, or my personal favorite games of all time. Um, which at this moment is sits in the third spot for me. So I look forward to hearing some more of your favorite games of all time. So, John, do you have anything else to add for this week's episode of the Nobody Podcast?
Well, I might play Bloodborne, but it looks like it might be coming to PC. So
Anytime soon?
mm, that I cannot determine because it's Sony exclusive. They kind of have the rights to this kind of things, but they've released some other games recently on PC. It
They
says it is
will
now on
be.
PC. It is now on PC. When was this?
I don't think Bloodborne. I don't think Bloodborne's on PC yet. We'll check into that in our own time. But John, thank you for joining me for this week's episode of the Nobody Entertainment Podcast. It's been a great episode number 4. I appreciate it. Of course, we look forward to talking to you next week for episode number 5, and we'll go into some more fun and interesting things. But until then, you guys be good, don't do drugs, and have a wonderful week.
Hey, laissez faire, do as you will.